Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started. All right, so we are back today, and we are talking about a subject that you and I have alluded to over the multiple episodes now that we have out there, but we haven't talked about it very directly in a while again. And I was sharing with you as we were sitting here catching up that it's coming, this subject is coming up so much, it's just almost painful for me each week when I hear about another valued employee leaving not only the dental office that they're in, but the field altogether. Each time it feels like, oh no, we've lost another one. There they go. And so you and I were sitting here and kind of starting to brainstorm on this. And I'll freely admit, I am thinking about this constantly, but I don't necessarily know that I have any answers at all, other than we're going to share at least some honest dialogue on our thoughts on this subject and see if we can help listeners out. So tell me your initial thoughts on this.
You know, I think just that whole, I know we've talked about it in other podcasts too, but we, went through the pandemic. It was this, yay, we made it. We're in it together and all of that. And then, we had the ups and downs, and earlier this year with the Omicron, and it was like we were down again. And for some reason now it's like, it's this train that's taken off and it's just moving too fast, and yes. I can't stop it and I can't process it. But everything I'm reading too, like we all see the workforce and all, and I guess I'm trying not to look at the news because it's depressing. And then you see all these signs and I'm like, everybody's looking to hire. So where are the workers? Did that many people just not make it through COVID, or what is going on? I think this week as well, this past week, I had a colleague of mine, and, he messaged me, and 2 days before that, another colleague messaged me, hey, do you have any resumes on file? And I was like, you are really funny. Like, no, nobody has resumes on file. Nobody's even applying to my posts. So no, I have 0 resumes. Yeah. And then this other colleague 2 days later, messaged me, and he's like, I have another one leaving, who is leaving to go work from Amazon because they can work from home, $25 an hour, full benefits. And so that's when it really dawned on me, because I think I've been, like you said, I've kind of been thinking about it and dancing around it and maybe burying my head. I don't know, but just kind of like not really processing the reality. And then reading as well that like 75% of the workforce in healthcare is leaving. And I'm like, what? How can that be? Yeah. Like, where are we talking about? Was this like internationally? Is this like in New York? Like, what are we talking about? Are we, before I get carried away with this, but then I didn't want to read more because if it was going to affect me, and you really did me, and I didn't want to know that either. So I just kind of was like, I don't know what to do with this piece of information and how to process it. All of that to say, I feel like it finally dawned on me that throughout my career as a dentist, really, it's like, how do I keep my employees happy to keep them from leaving my office to the dentist down the street?
Yes.
And it's the first time it's dawned on me that it's not even the dentist down the street. It is any industry altogether. And that has become so daunting. It's like, I'm just going, I don't even, what am I supposed to do with that? Mm-hmm. Like, now I'm competing with Amazon?
Yeah.
Well, we know who's going to get crushed. Like the
little guy.
Right.
I know.
Like David and Goliath. I don't know, man, but I think in this case, Goliath's going to win. Like, we're not at the point where David, I'm not prepared as David. I have me no slingshot. I didn't realize I needed one. So I think I'm just really, I'm just overwhelmed with going, the one you said, I guess, tell.
Yeah. So, really multiple examples in the last few weeks of some that have fully left, some that have had conversations with me that they're considering leaving. And so all of these are to non-dental next steps. which was very odd to me because, to your point earlier, anytime that the dental field or a client of mine that I was working with lost somebody, it was almost always to another dental office. And, one's choosing to kind of just take some time off and stay home and travel. And one of them is going into real estate. And the other one, gosh, I can't remember now where she said she was going. And then two of them are thinking about leaving just because, again, the stress of the last few years, they're all, I think, burning out and just wanting this change in life. And so their change is not a change to a new dental office like it used to be. It's a change completely out of the field. And so I think I'm sitting there thinking about offices like yours, all of my clients that have tried to put a job post up and nothing comes in, or maybe one or two repeat offenders that were, awful employees or never even showed up to their job interview. They're continuing to apply, but really good candidates aren't applying. And then I'm sitting there kind of doing the math and seeing this teeter-totter of, okay, we've kind of been fighting, but we're balanced. It's like, yes, there was still enough coming in that if one random person decided to leave, we could potentially replace them. But then I'm seeing this seesaw just go, oh my gosh, I feel like each week I'm hearing about a new valuable employee that is either leaving or considering leaving. And I know there's not enough in the pool of candidates to pull back in and replace those. And so it's kind of like you. I think I've been watching it happen, and I'm a problem solver. I really like to fix problems as much as I can. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I like having answers, but I don't have very many answers here. I have a lot of thoughts, and I have a lot of things that maybe we can try this, and if it doesn't work, we start trying something else. But I don't really know all the answers on this, which is why you and I started talking about two of your really valuable employees and just going, how do we, even just talking through that together, with you, it's like, in what ways can we compete? Financially, of course, is always one of the things that we can compete with. But sometimes, like the lady that's leaving to no longer work at all, is like, okay, well, obviously financials wasn't a drive for her. She mentioned traveling, so maybe traveling is her draw. We've got one person on your team that loves, beautiful landscapes, and we're thinking, wow, if we wanted to retain her, maybe we could extend some additional PTO to her so that she can travel. I think we're just trying to figure out, how do we tackle this subject at all? What do we have to offer?
And I think in the past, my strategy was always money.
Yeah.
If I pay the best,
yeah,
and have good working hours, that set me apart. And I feel like that worked for a long time.
Yeah.
And I just think, we talk again about when we started this podcast, it was last summer, and we're about a year into doing podcasts. And I feel like just even less than a year, so much has changed. I feel like even we did the talk about bonuses and all of that. And I feel like I've kind of changed on that as well now. And I've evolved in my thought process on that. So I, again, no answers here. Not that I ever had the answers. It was always you with the answers. So I don't feel as bad. You probably feel terrible right now too. Sorry, that was a jerk move there. But I feel like money was the answer. Like if I just pay you really well, but like to your point, I started asking like the woman you said who's like going to go travel, and she's older, I guess, like in her 50s. So I start looking at that and going, are you crazy, lady? Like, do you even know how much travel costs nowadays? And are there places that are safe from a war perspective and a COVID disease perspective? Like, where are you going to travel to, and do you have enough saved, and are you planning on living till 100? Because if you are, do you have enough saved for the next 50 years? Like, we're back to that conversation about retirement. And retirement was one thing when you were croaking at 65, 70, but now people are making it till 90, 95. Do you have enough? And have you thought about that? Or the one in my office that it's like, oh, I would love to go live in California or Colorado. Do you want to go live where gas is $6+ a gallon?
Yeah.
Like, go live in California and do what? Stare at the ocean, but you can't afford to eat anything.
Right.
So, like, have you thought about that? Like, so those are some of the things that I kind of want to say. But then we are in this place and time now where people have watched loved ones die or suffered through this pandemic and all of these other things going on. And so we all are like, well, life's too short. So like I said, I'm just very overwhelmed. And my answer has always been throw money at it. And that's not working anymore. And so it's like I'm up against this beast that I don't even know what I'm up against. And so now, and it's like each individual employee I'm having to think about to go, what can I tailor for you? And I'm exhausted because I'm like, who's tailoring for me?
Right.
And so then do I need to put myself in a situation where I am giving up control and letting somebody else come and buy the practice, and then I can start making my demands of what I want, and certainly people will want to keep me and meet my demands.
Right.
Or maybe they won't.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I don't know. I'm just really kind of stuck here going, I feel like I'm back to bending and catering for each person without anybody having my back on that.
Yeah.
But I need to.
Right.
Because now I have had some, a couple of new hires that I'm like, oh my God, this is a beating to train this person.
Right.
It is awful having to train this person. And then that too, like not knowing whether Amazon's going to poach them.
Yeah.
So like, what am I doing all this for?
Well, and that's to me a perspective that we really have to have in this conversation today that's different than it was a year ago. It's not that the other industries weren't competing. I think it's just finally the big industries like the Amazons or even the McDonald's, for crying out loud, finally woke up and they started tackling this employment issue before we thought it. We were thinking about it, right? But it was like we were coming from that perspective of we're only competing with our neighbor down the street. I think the McDonald's and the Amazons of the world realized the pool of people in their employment pool went down, and they're like, okay, we're going to have to start attracting from other fields. And so I think they put together these great offers like the Amazon offer, work from home, make $25 an hour, get your full benefits. That's very appealing to a lot of people. And they started playing a game that started some of our employees in the dental field actually looking outside of the dental field, maybe in many situations, in all of the situations that I was talking about, for the first time in their life, they're thinking about something other than dental. And so I think that's kind of the shoe that's dropped over these last, I would say 2 or 3 months, that is different or new than where we were sitting a year ago.
So in a way that almost makes me go, is there hope? Because I start going, well, I'm clearly do not have the backing of McDonald's and Amazon. And so for them, is it going to hurt less? But then I think, no, it's going to hurt more because it's really going to cut into their profits and for their shareholders. And how long is it going to take before they start going, never mind, we still want our big piece of the pie, and where can we cut? So do I just need to be patient another year?
Right.
Or is this here to stay?
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like I can make zero predictions now. And so I don't, part of me is like, well, I don't want to lose my mind and now start offering all my team $100 an hour and then sink my boat very quickly.
Yeah.
Because or will that get me through the next 4 months so that they don't leave for Amazon? Or do I let them leave for Amazon? See that if Amazon's doing all that for you, they're probably going to work you to the bone.
Right.
Or there's got to be some downside to it. And that I just need to be patient. You'll eventually come back. Or, I think like all of this it's just unprecedented and we don't know at what point you're going to come full circle. And then we had another one that applied and she's not asking for very much. And so then I was like, why are you not asking for very much? And my colleague said, well, maybe she doesn't know that this is her value and this is her rate. And I went, but then do I want to hire that person who's so clued out?
Right.
Like, are you dumb?
Yeah.
So I'm really not sure how to, am I dramatizing this because you and I pay attention to a lot of things? It's really not that bad, but it's just more than what we're used to. So it seems like a big problem. Or is it truly a big problem?
I think it's a huge problem. Yeah, I really do. I
was hoping you wouldn't say that.
I know. I've been fighting it being a big problem. I think I usually tend to be a half glass full type person and think, okay, this trend is going to turn at some point. Trends always do, especially if there's some effort put towards changing I mean, that's my whole field is, let's watch this trend. We want to change that. Let's do A, B, and C. And then this beautiful thing happens and we watch this trend change together. And I'm like, oh, it's glorious. And that's not happening this time. And so I feel like I've been taking different stabs at it through various clients on, well, let's tackle it this way. Let's tackle it this way. And I'm not seeing a positive trend change. And so I think I am starting.
But is it too soon?
It could be. It could be too soon. I think that's a hope that I have, that maybe, 2 years into this, a little over 2 years into this, maybe we're just not quite out of the weeds, so to speak. And we're still in this. You mentioned something earlier that I think is really important to think about here, which is we still haven't fully realized the long-term global mental, emotional, psychological effects that pandemic had on everybody, is still having, right? So I think we're, coming to a different point of the pandemic. But when we look back over the last 2 years and a few months, people went through a lot of changes. And so I think the people like the lady that's going to leave and travel, or the people that are going back into real estate, I think they stuck it out. Right? They made it through because they're good workers. Let me just put my nose down. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to make it through. And now there's kind of this feeling of light at the end of the tunnel for them. And I think they're hitting a point where they're going, is this really what I want for my next 10 years of work, for my next 20 years of work? Is this bringing me the satisfaction that it used to bring me? And I think they're hitting a point of self-reflection that they had not allowed themselves to hit during I just need to buckle down and I just need to work and we've just got to tackle this problem together. And surprisingly, and I've kind of been taken aback by some of these, I'm like, oh gosh, now these solid, dependable people are hitting the point of self-reflection. And I'm not saying all of them, but even the fact that some of them are bailing is a wake-up call for me, where I'm going, oh my gosh, it's almost feeling like a third, fourth, or fifth punch to me, because as I've walked through with my clients over the last, couple years, losing a variety of different employees, for the first time, we're hitting these that are like gut punches. It's like, no, not this person. You can't take this person from me. And so I think I'm trying to figure out now, wow, like what is it that's causing another exodus? It almost feels like another wave of an exodus that I'm seeing. And it's not that the exodus hasn't stopped at all. It's just been in different waves, different types of people that are leaving at various times. And now I feel like we're getting to the people that really pulled us through the pandemic and are having these moments of like almost midlife crisis. My husband keeps explaining it. It's like the whole world is almost going through a midlife crisis and is reevaluating their values and their priorities and what they want to do. And I think that's what we're dealing with now. And then you insert the big guys in there, the Amazons or the McDonald's or whoever the big players continue to be. That's who comes to my mind right now. We don't know who it's going to be over the next few months. And are they just providing enough of an outlet for those people to go, okay, well, at least I can kind of temporarily work for Amazon, kind of do some thinking, reflecting, and figure out what I want to do. So those options may not have been there for them before. So it was more of a either income or no income decision. And now it's like income or I can have this income. And it just gives me the mental break that I needed.
Yeah, that's true. I think you're right. I never thought about that either, that the option wasn't there.
Yeah.
So like either you stuck it out in dental or you went to go make $12 an hour at McDonald's. Well, then that was not really a choice. But now you've got other players in the game that weren't there dangling their own carrots. Mm-hmm. And
it's like the perfect storm.
So then my colleague and I were like, we went back to the last podcast. I think it was a podcast or two before, where you were talking about how one of your clients is drawing from canes.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I said that to this other colleague of mine, and I said, because he made a point. He said, the last two that have left for this Amazon job, that they both had college degrees. And I said, it's almost like we need to go and find and I referred back to your Canes. And I said, apparently there was this older lady that took the job, and now she's so proud of herself for getting out of fast food and moving into a respectable office. And her kid, what did you say? Her kid was like, oh, are you a dentist now? Or whatever it is.
So
it's like
proud of her.
And so we both were like, maybe we're just looking in the wrong place. You know, we're getting these degreed people that we thought were going to make things easier, but they're the ones getting poached by. But maybe we need to be drawing from the school bus driver. And what makes it easy about a school bus driver? Well, you get benefits, you have a good schedule, but what could we do better? Well, you're not going to have to deal with all these rules of a school. I don't know. Or are we pulling from, you know, but then you go back and go, well, is there a reason you were at Canes? Like, were you not a high achiever? Are you not the grade point average? Like, I don't know. Like, is there a reason you were at Canes?
Well, and it's one of those things too, we don't know. It's almost like we don't know what we don't know until we give these people a shot. By the way, I think at the time of the last the podcast talking about these ladies, I had not met the third one. You know, they had recruited a third one. I said I felt bad for Canes because we were taking all their people. Met the third one, trained with her. Smart stinking cookie. I mean, I've been impressed with all three of them and their work ethic. The day that I was there, they all commute together because they drive from about 30 minutes away. They were all working at the same Canes. So they commute together to this dental office, and apparently they'd all passed a cold around to each other. So they are just like, you can tell they don't feel good, but daggum, all three of them showed up. They're all masked up. They're getting their, you know, their job done. And I can tell they didn't feel good, but it's like they have this work ethic and this drive to succeed, and they're intelligent when I'm training with them.
But then why are they at Canes?
Well, I think to be fair, all three of these are, one of them has attended some college. All three of these, though, are pretty much high school educated people that I think have aspirations of college, but life hasn't given them an easy ride, any one of these three. And so I think they were paying bills. This was their version of paying bills and making ends meet. And previously, keep in mind, 2 years ago, most of them would have never gotten a shot at the dental field. Not a chance. So this, again, has become a shot for them to get out of that industry and to actually accelerate in their career. And I've been watching them very closely, and I'm very impressed with them. And so it is one of those moments where it's like, okay, do we really have to kind of, just like Amazon is looking at people that they may have never considered before, are we going to have to do the same thing and compete with different people, I guess is the best way of describing it. If Amazon's going to take kind of our high achieving, college educated people that were kind of our golden goose eggs, well, okay, maybe we have to kind of change what we're looking for and pull from different industries.
So that's what we were saying. Like, where is it worse?
Yeah.
And could we pull them up to a respectable profession and a respectable office where you've got good hours and you don't go home smelling like greasy chicken every day? But then the counter to that is all the training.
Yes.
When are you going to hit your ceiling? I have no idea where that ceiling is going to be.
Yeah.
And then are you going to get poached by Amazon as well? So, I mean, it's definitely a risk, but it's like, what else are we doing? And then when you think about kind of what you were saying, when you think about like the traditional dental assistant pre-pandemic, I mean, that's kind of who we had. It was really not the person who really went on to college and did all of those things, but they were workers. So really in that regard, has anything really changed? But like you said, we were always inundated with all these resumes that we didn't really have to look harder. And you've been a proponent for years about trying to find people from other industries.
Yeah.
And I know kind of what I would do different now, one that we've kind of alluded to before, but I was at a mall and this, lady at the clothing store was just phenomenal customer service, and she seemed smart. And we did approach her. What I would do different now, because what we did then was, hey, do you want to come in and learn and train and do all of that? And now what I would do different is, no, you will get paid.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a gamble on you and see where I could take you. But again, in the past, I'm glad you're saying this, because I'm like, why didn't I do that before? Well, I didn't really need to before, because there were people available that I wouldn't have had to train.
Exactly.
And so I think just looking more in places that we've not looked at.
Well, you and I at a restaurant that we frequent have this preferred waitress, and each time we're like, man, she's so good. Anytime we're seated not at her table or if she's not there, we're like, where's our lady? And you and I actually looked at each other the last time we were there and we're like, I don't think she was there that day, but we were like, we need to ask her what her goals are and why does she work here? Because she's very, I would say, talented in customer service. And so, looking at the restaurants that you go to and finding that stellar service person or the person that just communicated well or just kind of brightened up the room that you are in. Again, I know that's not a new concept, but I think it's almost more of a necessary thing now. It's not just a luxury of like, oh, make sure to look at your drive-through person and see if they have some potential. Now it's like your drive-through person might be your only option. So look a little harder at that person.
Well, and then the downsides of that or the risks of that. But again, it's like at this point, it doesn't really matter because it is what it is. Like we don't have the counterbalance to that. But this colleague of mine, he's always prided himself on finding people like who just had good customer service and bringing them in. So he's had like the bank teller. He's had 2 different ones that came in. And then now he just hired somebody from the daycare that was really good with the parents and with some kids and whatever. So he's always been one to look outside the box. I think just because he likes being different and he thinks he's being real smart and doing all that. The downside of that where I always said, no, that's good. But the training you have to do. And again, that for me, so maybe he didn't mind so much, but honestly, he doesn't do a lot of the training. It affects his team.
Yeah.
And I don't think he ever has taken that into consideration. So for me though, my personality is a little different. I'm a little mama bear I didn't want to have to spend the time training.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what happened with him. Like the bank teller one made it there for a while, a year or 2 years, but then there are people who kind of go, oh, is this it for me in dental?
Yes.
And then they move on. And so it may not be the long-term solution, but it is a solution for right now. And right now we have nobody. So like having to go, maybe poaching somebody from the bank or from
for a year or 2
Canes or whatever. Yeah. And letting them see. And, again, for me, in my defense, I've never done that before because I didn't want to and I didn't have to, because there were people who already knew dental and who had kind of a proven history of, I've been in dental since I was 18 and now I'm 28 and I've worked in these 2 offices. And so, it is hard for somebody who's never known what they're walking into and to learn everything you have to learn with the dental terminology and all of that. And it does differ from specialty to specialty.
Yeah.
So, in his specialty, he's an orthodontist and he can really have almost anybody doing check-in, check-out. My check-in and check-out person, oh gosh, you've got to know a lot about dental because you've got to know about insurance and scheduling and all of these other things. So, trying where you can to put those people, insert them where you can.
Yes.
So kind of like the one that we have that we're loving in our office, we hired her to input data. And now she's showing promise and she wants to learn some dental things.
Yeah.
But that could have easily been one where she's like, no, I just want to enter these forms in. Okay, well, then we've created this job in this niche just for you to do that. So, I mean, it is, again, I think we're having to be very creative and really look at each individual player. I wish I had some advice on how you don't burn out on that. How do we as the dentist, as the owner, not burn out? Because it's exhausting.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you should mention that. As you were talking about that, one of the things that I feel like I've spent more time on in the last few months, probably than ever, is working with offices on setting up more plug and play type training for new employees. So when I get in with an office and there's no manual, there's no standard operating procedures, I'm a big proponent of training videos right now, just that the team itself has created to be able to answer so short little snippet videos for a new employee that's like, how do I create a new patient? And then there's a 1-minute video that the team has put together that it's somebody from the team talking to this, new employee on this is how to create a, new patient appointment. So it seems like a lot of investment of time. So when I'm asking these offices to, hey, by the time I come back next time, Sally, I need you to have put together standard operating procedures for this, this, and get that done before I'm back next time. It seems like an extra level of something to do when they're already stretched thin or feeling understaffed, whatever the case may be. But I'm thinking exactly like you're thinking. Long term, we have to have a better training protocol in place that isn't 100% dependent upon another team member or a leader in our practice. Because, number one, who knows if those leaders will be there next time we need to hire? Second of all, there's already enough that the team leads are taking on that to consistently add a new employee to the mix is eventually going to wear them out, and then they're going to be bailing on us, which we absolutely do not need. So I would encourage all listeners that if you don't have a good training protocol or training plan in place, even if you've got a stable staff, now's the time to create one, because I think it will give us the freedom to look at a Raising Cane's employee and go, you know what? I think 60% of their training could be done by following through this manual, watching these videos, shadowing this person, and then the remaining 40% is going to be my team lead watching them do all of these things and make sure that they've acquired the necessary skills. Well, great. We didn't cut out all of the training, but if we could cut out 60% because we took the time to put in some good protocols, it gives us the freedom to look at people that haven't been in the field before.
Yes.
Yes.
I agree.
No, just, seems simple now. Just the 30 freaking hours it takes to put that together, right? Oh, right. My goodness. Yeah, no, I think looking at other places is an important way to, other industries is an important way to possibly solve this problem. I do think we have to address some of the perks, though, of the dental field. You and I were just talking this morning about a couple of employees that are, I would say all of your employees are valuable, but there are a couple that we really couldn't survive without. And so we were talking about their pay, their compensation. Is there anything that we need to do? And I think that's a valid point to consider in all of this. We kind of joked earlier that I historically have been very conservative on raises. I like for them to make a lot of financial sense. I like the practice to be very protected in the process. I've been very careful with raises in the past, and I feel like that's gone completely. And I'm just like, what? You said a raise? Yes, they should get a raise because it is an important retention tool still. I don't know that it all rests on that, but it is very much still an important retention tool.
I had asked you to ask your husband, and I don't know if he
hasn't done it yet.
Okay. So we had thought about, like, so he's a teacher. Mm-hmm. So why are you staying and being a teacher? Because again, I don't know this, but I tell myself this. It can't be just dental that's losing their people, right? Like daycare workers are probably losing their people for the same reasons that we are, and teachers and all of that. So what is making him continue to be a teacher? And so I think I'm trying to figure out those answers because, like you said, for me, like all I can do is the money. But when I sat down and I kind of went and thought about, okay, so if this colleague's employee is going to Amazon, who else in my office could do that? And who do I really need? And so I'm going to make it as lucrative as I can right now. Mm-hmm. But I got to figure out what's going to speak to her. So yeah, Sorry, I lost my train of thought over where I was going with this, but we're going to be offering amounts that I never would have dreamed of offering. Yeah. And could I be shooting myself in the foot? It's very possible I could be, but I don't know what else. I feel like I'm sink or swim right now. Mm-hmm. I cannot think about, and maybe that's what our staffs have been going through, I need to pay my bills right now.
Yes.
So even though I like this environment, I can't stay in here anymore, even though, yes, you're offering me 4 weeks of PTO, but that didn't help me right now to pay this bill.
Pay the bills, yeah.
So, really trying to figure out. And then here's the other part, like, who do I ask and how do I ask without showing all my cards?
I know.
So it's like, one of the key people that I'm like, I'd hate to lose one of my admin people. but she's very smart. If I asked her, like, why are you staying here as opposed to why aren't you going to Amazon? Like, like I don't want to plant the seed in her head. So I'm like, I don't know how to figure out what it is that they need right now. And then, like you said, is it going to be next year if I do like raise this dollar amount so high and then I can't do anything again next year?
Is that going to be a letdown?
Yeah, but then I'm like, I can't worry about that right now because they may not make it to next year.
Yeah, we got to deal with today. We got to deal with today. Yeah. And I would say, again, for listeners, and this is like so foreign, it's almost like I can't get it out of my mouth, but be as generous as you possibly can be when it comes to pay. Can you see the pain on my face as I say that? I'm literally like biting my lip as I say it.
Who are you?
I was always your anti to this. You were over generous, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And now I am coming around, and I'm saying in this moment today, I think anybody who's listening, it is worth going back and looking and seeing, am I being as generous as I possibly can be? Is there another category in the budget that could be diminished in order to make way for higher pay for my employees? Because everybody is feeling the financial pinch of inflation right now. And I do think that if there's a financial question mark in the employee's mind, could I potentially make more, or do I have to make more? One of the employees that is thinking about leaving is looking at a second job because she is not able to survive now on her pay. And so that's one of those things that's like, oh gosh, once you add a second job in, that young lady is going to become worn out and tired and dissatisfied in life, I'm sure. Can the practice afford to just make up the difference that she needs? And I know that's a slippery slope. Believe me, if anybody knows that, it's me. But it's like, now is the time we've got to look and go, is there anything that I can do from a generosity standpoint that would make a difference?
And of course, this is obvious, but I'm going to just make sure that it's obvious for the people that you have pinpointed that are worth it. Because just right before doing this podcast, we went through each of my employees and I said, who do we need to make sure, like, especially after last week, after my buddy colleague reached out and was like, dude, I'm very nervous because who's to say, like, now this person isn't going stinking, spreading their stinker on the office. I'm going to Amazon, and why are you guys working here for 18 when you could be making 25 and not have to pay for childcare? And, like, that's going to happen. So how do we make it to where, I went and I thought about every single one of my employees, and I'm like, you know what? I love my hygienists, but at the end of the day, I can scale too. So if push came to shove, I could figure out how to make it without them. Front desk, again, I obviously need front desk, but at the end of the day, I have posted claims myself. I could hire a third party to do it. I could, I don't like my patients to not have a live voice picking up the phone, but if it came down to it, I could make do with that. So, like, who in your office, so didn't hear now, just when we went person by person, and I was like, okay, so here's this person. If she walked, that would suck, but she doesn't bring enough redeeming things. I think I could figure out how to make it without her. How about this person? How about this person? So we literally had to play that game. Yeah. And then now it left me with 2 or 3 that I was like, but these 2 or 3, are they worth, like, if they left, is that going to be a big sucker punch? Like, how hard is the punch, I guess is what I'm saying. If that one left, ouch, that would hurt. Okay, I'm okay. That one hurt. Oh my God, I cannot catch my breath. That's the person that I might try to figure out how I can make it. And of course, then the next question that I asked you is, how do I have that conversation with this person? Because I don't want to think like, oh, well, you've always had this budget and you just never gave it to me, and now you're giving it to me. That's how valuable I am to you. I don't want to ever be in that boat. So obviously I think listeners know that, but just as a friendly reminder, like, this is not an endorsement for going and raising every single person in your office. I would strongly suggest don't do that. Kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about before. Like, if you need to discipline somebody, and I'm like, should I not? And I'm like, no, I need to. This particular employee, I do need to discipline you for this. And you may walk, and that's not going to feel good, but
It is what it is.
It's not going to feel like my hand got cut off.
Yeah.
But if you left, God, I'm going to feel like my hand got cut off. So for you, I might, and
yeah,
it's a slippery slope, like you said, but that's my strategy at the moment.
Exactly. Well, and I think it's a wise strategy. Especially now, I would say, going back on something that you said, that don't raise, everybody across the board, unless you know you're below market value across the board. And then I would say, if you've made it this far at below market value, you need to raise everybody. Don't wait on this any longer. Now is the time. I know it's going to hurt, but pinch that pocket and squeeze some of it out for the team. So you're in a different position where we made accommodations in everybody's pay recently that put you, I would say, very competitively in the market. And so now we came back full circle after making those changes, and we go, where else can we squeeze the budget? We identified the people that we know we need to funnel more money to. And it's not that there's excess. It's not like you're just sitting here on this mountain of money and you're like, in goddess form trying to pick who gets the few dollars from your mountain of money. That is not the case. We're going to squeeze the budget again and give raises to these two people that we've identified because we know it would be a huge sucker punch. So be strategic in where that money goes, unless you're the person that hasn't had to be strategic. You've been able to retain at under market value. And then my advice would be take the hit and raise your team. The other thing you and I just talked about was PTO and any other perks. So it has, and I think you alluded to this earlier, I wanted to make it a little bit clearer. It has shifted where one of the things that dentistry had to offer in offices that did a good job was kind of this full package, like with yours, the 401k match plan, which I want to come and talk back on another episode about this, but the counselor that you provide to your team for mental health and coaching purposes, the team building events, the bonuses, the competitive hourly pay, the PTO plan, you have this full package. And I think that full package is still exactly what I would recommend. So my recommendation hasn't changed. However, the world has changed to where now everything is so much more expensive. I was in an office 2 weeks ago, and the hygienist was actually complaining about her grocery bill, and she was like, I can't get out of the store. It's just herself and her older son that I think she's providing for. She said, I can't get out of the store for less than $150 each week. And she said, and that's with me trying to be on a really tight budget. And so it was a reminder again that the world has changed and people are so much more. It's just the money that's in the bank is what is very valuable to them right now. Now, does that mean we scratch all of the other perks and benefits and just focus on hourly increase? I wouldn't suggest that. I feel like that's a pretty risky move. But does it mean we potentially scale a little bit back? And that way we get them active money in their accounts.
Which is what we had to do.
Yes.
We took that baseline bonus. If y'all kind of remember, we talked about it a while ago.
Yeah.
But we said we're not doing that anymore, and that money is going to be converted into an hourly increase
for a consistent pay.
Yeah.
So I do think that's an area for everybody to think about as well. I'm not saying do away with the big package, but if you're thinking, oh, I really don't want to increase hourly, I'll just give a couple extra PTO days. That's probably not going to be as valuable to the bulk of your team right now, unless they're just independently wealthy, don't really necessarily need the income that they may appreciate, or if they've worked themselves to a stage of life where they can take more vacation and desire that, then PTO may absolutely be an area that you can increase and you don't have to go up in their hourly pay or their salary. But I would say for the most part, don't lean on those package benefits exclusively in lieu of a raise. I think you're going to have to get to more money in the account at some point.
Which is counter to what we've always done.
Yes.
Honestly. Because to me, it was like we were kind of keeping a competitive enough hourly.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to sabotage myself.
Right.
And doing the perks was the way that I could kind of, if we had a good year, I was able to give you, but I wasn't locked into this hourly. So it's a shift in thinking for sure. And it does make me very nervous.
Yeah.
But it's what I've got to do right now to make sure that I don't lose the worker altogether.
Yeah. And I would say, and you've mentioned that a couple times now, which I think is a really important mind shift right now. And again, the consultant in me is fighting these words coming out, but I think you've got to think about, what do I have to do right now? Because my tendency, I'm very strategic. I'm thinking the decision today impacts next year, the year after, 5 years from now, that there's this long-term impact. And that's still true. Absolutely relevant. But we have no clue at this point what next year is going to hold. And so we have to do what's right for right now. And I'm not saying be wild and crazy with your decisions that you're making. Seek counsel, get wisdom, definitely get some financial advice on what you're thinking. But I think we've got to think about what's needed right now. We'll cross next year when we get to next year. We've got to do what it takes.
But we got to get to next year. I think that's the difference. We got to get to next year, and that's a new feeling and a new vibe, and it's got my panties in a twist, but I don't know what to do about it. So it's just like breathe and
take each decision as it comes.
Yep.
And be thinking about it. We can't bury our head in the sand. If we have had our head buried in the sand, we've got to come up for air, and we've got to really, evaluate this with fresh eyes on an ongoing basis, honestly, because again, we were talking about this very candidly, less than a year ago, and the circumstances in the last 10 months have changed greatly. So it's just an ever evolving environment that we've really got to keep our nose on and make sure that we're really thinking about employee retention. Anything else you have to say on this before we close it?
I don't. I missed the sandbox.
We'll bring it back out one day. Look forward to that sandbox one day.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.